Recording. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I must say, I should be saying welcome back because I spent about 5 weeks, something like that, in the Philippines, in Manila, visiting family. Developed a 30-day cough, and just recovering from that. This is Dave Emmons, and a strange reality. In case you forgot me, I've been off the air, I guess, five weeks, maybe 6 weeks, for preparation and travel and everything. So, but I don't normally tell people that I'm going to travel. That's not a safe thing to do. So that's why I keep things quiet on that end of it. But just to let you know, I had a good time in Manila, in the Philippines, and no, I didn't do any radio there. They're not much interested in the UFO topic over there. So I just didn't do any. I was going to go to the radio station there and talk about some things, but I decided not to. The interest is not there in the Philippines, and so they're good people, nice people. My family, my step kids are great. I had a great blast with two of my step grandbabies, and it was really neat, really nice, and my stepkids are very progressive, and they're very rich, and so every night at just about we went to a fancy restaurant, and they had a big complete layout. It was fantastic. I just really enjoyed my kids. I miss them already, so I'm family, so I'm into it. But yes, I enjoyed myself, and the weather over there was about 92 degrees, 88 to 92 at all times, humid, beautiful plants. I've taken some pictures. I may put some pictures on Facebook. Pineapple gardens and places like that. It's really fantastic. The fruit that they grow over there, amazing. They have plants outside in their front yards that we have on the inside of our house. Tropical plants. Yeah, they grow them outside. They're all over the place, and we put them in the house like they're something fancy or something great. It grows out of wild with them. Well, beside all that, I'm recovering from the cough, of course, and I have another return guest coming back, and he's a nice guy and a very very smart guy, and he's been around quite a bit, and he knows quite a bit about some things. We're going to be talking about some of his new stuff and his new books tonight. His name is Dr. Bob Wenzel Gross. You might remember him from being on the show here about, I think it was last year, something like that. Dr. Bob, I think, and
July.
yeah, July. And he's written 3 books, or he's writing 3 books, and they're going to be finished up. The best part of being human is the ability to experience music and identify anomalous phenomena, UAP. Things you need to know about unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, but we're afraid to ask. The Roswell Syndrome, East meets West and beyond. And he's going to be talking about the acronym Ufology, and he's going to be talking about that. I'm going to turn him loose pretty soon. But I want to tell you a little bit about his background. He has studied unidentified anomalous phenomena, commonly known as UFOs, for decades, and he has a high regard for the multifaceted UAP phenomena. It's hard for me to get used to that, Dr. Bob, but the UAP. I always say UFO. I even printed in my notes about UFO. I can't get, I guess I'm stuck in the old age. But the scientific study of UFO data is called ufology. He's been scientifically studied UFO data for years. He is an average bear when it comes to ufology. In 1980, he began working on a classified cross-disciplinary research project at Penn State for acoustics. He's into the music thing too and sound, and he's combined the two of them. And he worked with NASA, and he's had some big projects. Also, in around 1980, he was I guess, a chamber experiments. A few of the cross-disciplinary researchers discovered that some subjects could hear beyond the natural range of human ear. And that's the hum, too. I hear the hum, Dr. Bob. And also in 1984, he earned a doctorate of education from Penn State. And 1985 to 1990, he was field investigator for PASU. In 1989, he experienced a close encounter of the first kind. We're going to be talking about that. From 2002 to 2004, he collaborated with the U.S. National Science Foundation and the academic organizations in Oklahoma City. And then he said he helped the Oklahoma City public schools. He worked with schools, and he's like I said, he's got a huge background, and I guess that's why NASA was interested in his teaching science, technology, engineering, math, and research and education. From 2005 to 2007, he was employed as a turnaround specialist and government agent. That sounds scary, government agent for the U.S. Department of Interior. Now that sounds better. It all depends on the department you're in. And in 2006, 2007, he was recruited. Recruited astronauts for NASA's Astro Materials Research and Exploration Science ARES Directorate. And I guess he worked with NASA and he planned to travel the Earth to the moon, from moon to the Mars, and all this other stuff. And he got involved in it. Dr. Bob Wenzel Gross, could you kind of ad lib on what I just said there a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thank you so much. It's good to be back with you. It's been a while.
Thank you. You're always a nice guy.
But I was going to mention to you, I taught at Penn State for. I'm considered to be an academic because I taught at Penn State for
Right.
14 years.
Uh-huh.
And then also I taught at some other universities like Indiana University of Pennsylvania, New Mexico State University, South Texas College. And I was at Notre Dame, I was a docent and I worked with the Snite Museum of Art.
Mhm.
And there I also studied what's known as funerary arts.
Funerary.
Yes, arts that had to do with funerals, the arts that were used during funerals.
Okay.
And well, that's a whole other story by itself.
What kind of music is that, Dr. Bob? I mean, I know New Orleans has they do a wake or whatever. They go down the street and they play jazz music. Is that part of what you're talking about, funerary music?
Well, the funerary arts were the type of, let's say, statues and paintings that went along with funerals.
Mm-hmm.
And they were for ceremonies.
Okay.
And there were some very strange things that went on that can go on with funerary arts. And I became involved with those. And then how people used certain things like certain bowls to sit on the heads of their corpses so that their spirits could get out and those kind of things.
Right.
And I did a very a university-wide workshop that was supposed to be very unique at Notre Dame, which I have to tell you about sometime. But they eventually wouldn't approve it because I think they were afraid I was going to bring something back from another world that wasn't there right now.
Oh, okay.
So that was pretty interesting. It's a whole interesting ball game, with a whole new thing, but a lot of strange things, and they had a lot of things in their storage area too that were bizarre.
Yeah, I imagine you had a lot of experiences with that. You were talking about these books that you are writing, and they sound like they're going to be great books. And you have, and I know, and myself I've written 3 books, and I know one of them was kind of took a little nosedive, but you expect that they're not all going to sell, that great. But I've got a couple of them that are still selling well. But I see where you have these books and you've been working on them. I know you're a scientist and a researcher, and probably much better than me at doing that research stuff. You were talking about a near-death experience off air and about the books. Could you talk about that first?
Yeah, Dave, I was going to tell you that's actually, I want to tell you how I got motivated into,
Right.
excuse me, writing these 3 books.
Okay.
And it's kind of it's just a story that you and your followers might enjoy. Okay. Maybe, but it's kind of strange. Okay.
All right.
But what was happening is that just going back not too long ago, when August of 2023, it was my doctor's visit of a urologist, and I had a score, what they call a PSA score, that was high.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going to just do a biopsy, a prostate biopsy, just to see if everything was okay.
Okay.
So I visited the doctor in August of 2023, and then I had the biopsy on August 27th of 2023. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there were complications. Okay, things didn't go as planned. So I was by Halloween, October 31st, okay, of 2023, I wasn't in really good shape. And I really thought I had to go into the hospital.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, man, this is I die. All kinds of things were happening that weren't supposed to happen. And I called my daughter and I said, I don't do so well. I love you. I think I might not make it out of the hospital and all this. So things were looking pretty bad.
Mhm.
So I finally did. Well, what happened in the hospital was kind of strange. Like at one night, it felt like it seemed like I was leaving my body and I was getting out and I was going around. I had this sensation like I was going around the hospital visiting other people. And I don't think I was. I don't think, because I don't think I could have gotten out of my bed and walked around the hospital. And I was talking to people. Of course, I was telling my name was Dr. Gross, and I was, introducing myself.
Yeah.
They thought I was probably a doctor with the hospital,
Mhm.
but I'm really not so sure that even happened. I think I felt like that was happening. It was a sensation.
Out of body
Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
I think so. Now, no, so I didn't really know what was going on. And but one thing I noticed, my mind was really functioning really well during that time. And even after that, my mind was clearer than it ever had been, even though I was in pretty bad shape.
Yeah.
And it was working faster than it normally did. And I was taking note of all this. And then I started having the sensation like that I had access to unlimited knowledge out there. And that's the feeling I was having while all this was going on. And my mental functions during that time, and during the time I was in the hospital, and during the time I was walking around, they seemed like they were enhanced. Now, when I left the hospital and I finally recovered, I guess I wouldn't be here right now, but I finally, recovered. And then when I went home after the hospital, this whole enhanced mental activity and my mind functioning continued. So that's what got me to start writing. And then I was just out of the hospital a few days and I started writing again and doing a lot of research, and it was all working out. So I started doing some research. I thought, what could that have been that happened to me when I thought I was going to die in the hospital? So I started doing some research and I found, I don't want to mention the name of the university, but it's on the East Coast. It's a very well-known university. And they had a project that they were looking into, NDEs, near death experiences,
Oh.
which was technically sounded like what I had.
Mhm.
So I contacted them and I tried to get enrolled in that program. And they said, there's a lot of people in the program. They're researching this seriously right now. And they said they were going to put me on the roster and they were going to get back to me when, there was space for me to do that.
Mhm.
But that's what started me to start excuse me, rewriting, or actually writing, these 3 new books. It was just one excuse me, one after the other.
You
But
don't have that.
that's what started.
You don't have that 30-day cough, do you, Dr. Bob?
I think it's maybe a 20-day cough
20. Okay.
here in
For sure.
Chicago.
Okay. A little whiskey will shorten that a little bit, I think. No, no, just kidding. But no, that NDA thing, NDE is a very exciting. I mean, they're researching it, and I think they're finding out a lot of things that are true. It's not just a conspiracy; it really does happen. And I've had out of body, of course, with ET experiences, and you've just mentioned something about being out of body and seeing people. Uh,
Yeah,
that
it never struck me before, and it was strange. It was really strange that it happened. Now, fortunately, I recovered, and there was no, they didn't find any cancer or anything in the operations. Everything's going on right now. But when I was having that, what I would consider an NDE, it was odd, and it got me to start researching and writing again, almost to where the point where I was motivated to write because of that NDE that I had, which I thought was odd. And it worked because I was getting a lot more research done than I had actually planned. And I was like, if I had a problem, if I was trying to figure out some kind of research problem, I was finding the answers to them. Where before it might take me a long time, I almost went immediately to the right answer that I was looking for when I was doing the research.
I remember Dr. Bob here a while back last year or whatever, you were telling me that you were stuck on a couple of books and you had a rewrite and you had to, you were stuck on a couple and you just couldn't finish them off. Are these the books that you were talking about? Then all of a sudden
well, I've always been looking ahead because the whole UAP, let's call it /UFO phenomenon, it fascinates me. And now, and I go in deep into things, really deep. I'm not the average bear when it comes to research. I really look into situations because I can. I'm an academic. I worked at universities and I've done research on high level projects that were top secret and classified and so forth like that. So I know
you know how to do footnotes better than I do.
Yeah. But this is the whole thing that's why that NDA kind of threw me. I never expected it to be that way. Because I'd heard about people having, near-death experiences, and I didn't think of them quite that way, even though I knew they were special. But they were, in my case, they were special in a positive way. And it has got me thinking about research better than I had. And there's a lot going out there, Dave, right now in the world of the UAP and the UFOs,
right?
And but so what I started doing is then I started writing books that I thought I would enjoy writing and the audience would enjoy writing, but they almost like self-help books, about UFOs, UAPs.
Right. It's about enlightening people. That's the thing. Yeah.
Well, that's it. And it's tough to enlighten people sometimes. Like when I go out and do presentations, I'm telling them the truth. A lot of times they don't want to hear it. And it's not like that's bad, but that's what's so interesting. And I'm with the 3 books that I'm working on now, the way I look at it, if these get accepted into the public, this could be like an entire sea change on how people think about the whole phenomenon. Because like one of the first book that I think I mentioned to you, like things you need to know about unidentified anomalous phenomena, but we're afraid to ask.
Right.
Now that came to me again, based right after that whole NDA happened, that whole title and everything, and the whole concept behind the book. And what I do is I keep a notebook beside my bed every night. And as soon as I get an idea, I get up, turn the light on, and write it down.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I have a ledger. I type it in, and if I, something comes to mind, and that's how I wrote my book. And I, that's how I did it through Scientific Ledger. That's why when I first started, the publisher told me to rewrite. That was discouraging because I wrote it in a ledger, scientific manner, and they wanted it story form. They wanted it in chapter form. So I had to go and rewrite it. So for a lot of people, that'd be frustrating. But I went ahead and did it because I was being pushed to write books just like you. My push come from somewhere else, either spiritual, or it come from the people or the extraterrestrials that I've had some association with that push me, and they can do that psychologically.
But yeah, I'm learning a lot in the research that I'm doing. And I see the good and the bad in everything, that can be done. But like with that first book, I like when I taught music at Penn State, I would tell these are, college students, and I would tell them music. Then you're involved with music somewhat yourself,
Yeah,
correct?
45 years of playing music, yes.
Okay. So you understand a lot of that stuff. But when you think about this, music can only exist in one place, and that's in your mind.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, it's just sound that's coming into your mind and your brain. It's your mind, that makes sound into music. Like when I first started at Penn State and doing doctoral work, I couldn't tell the difference between Baroque music and classical music and who wrote it. I just heard it as music. By the time I was done, with my studies, I could practically tell what composer it was and what month he wrote it.
Yeah.
Is you just become that familiar with the environment that they're working in. And to me, UAPs are the same way.
Yeah.
And
could you explain to us some of the things that we don't know about in this book that we don't know about, we don't ask about? Could you tell us some of the things that we need to know about UAPs, Dr. Bob?
Yeah. No, you're talking about music, not talking about, you're talking about UAPs, not music, right?
Yeah,
In this
right.
first book.
UAPs, yeah. The first book you was talking about you say everything you wanted to know about UAPs. Yeah. Could you tell us some of the things that we need to learn about?
Yeah. No, I can't tell everything or nobody
Okay.
about the book, but I'll give you a few good things.
Okay.
Like for example, let's see. Well, for example, just the term UAP versus UFO. There is a reason today that they are calling unidentified objects and events up in the sky UAPs. And that is because technically it's an object or event, whatever people are seeing. It's an object or event that, first of all, they don't recognize it. They can't identify it.
Right.
Okay. So it's unidentifiable. Now, your brain acts differently when it sees something that's unidentifiable. Okay. And for that object or event to really influence you, it's got to be unidentifiable. It needs to be rare, meaning it doesn't happen very often. And it's got to be exceptional. So when you come up with it's unidentified, and when it's rare, what that is the term anomalous means it's rare. So it's something that's unidentifiable, it's anomalous, and excuse me, it's exceptional and worthy of studying.
Right. Yeah, I think you got a cough.
Catching your cough.
Yeah, yeah. It's longer than 20 days, huh? It's that 30-day cough.
But so it's those kind of things that cause you to think more about it, and they stay with you more. So the UAPs definitely have an effect on your brain. You don't you can't just see something with your eyes. When you have to perceive it.
Right.
That means you're using your brain. as well as your senses.
And also it makes your adrenaline flow and the, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's happening that's really growing your brain. And that's what's so important about it. So that, like a UAP technically is something that's really going to cause an effect on you and actually cause your brain to eventually start evolving.
Okay. Well, that it's a spiritual thing too. I think it makes you spiritually uplifted.
Yeah, once you realize it's something special,
Mm-hmm.
and you will start, and you pick that up, and your brain knows that, and your senses know that, you'll have what's known as an affective reaction. And that's sometimes, did you ever get chills when you see something? And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
well, that's evidence that you're having an affective reaction, and you're realizing that.
So that makes it more real whenever you have these bodily functions go kind of wacko.
It makes it more in depth.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 5 or 6 step sequence that if you're looking at something that will end up being a real UAP, okay, that has a real effect on you,
Right.
there's like a sequence that happens that you have to go through to make sure it's really a UAP and something worth you spending your time on looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to, first of all, you have to see it. And seeing is different than perceiving. Seeing is just basically means that you use your eyes. Okay.
Right.
But when you're perceiving something, you're using your eyes and your other senses and your brain. So that the more stuff you have in your brain, the better kind of things you're going to see.
Okay. So that draws the difference between a regular dream, lucid dream, and that type of thing. And that's the same mannerism that you're not dreaming, but you're really seeing something.
You are, well, you're not seeing it, you're perceiving it. You're beyond seeing.
Yeah.
The seeing triggers it. You have to be able to see it with your senses. But once you see it, and if it is special, you'll know it. I mean, because, you've been, all your life, you've been bringing in information about these things, especially if you enjoy researching them.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is you're actually growing. You're having a totally different experience in your brain than the person next to you is having.
Yeah. I notice with all my sightings that I've had, I can just about tell you the date and the time, and it smacks in your memory, and it's right back there. It's there. You never
Oh
forget.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's something that imprints itself.
No.
Like you're saying, it really has a spiritual and a, a I guess what you're saying, a perception that really buries deep into your memory.
Yeah, it's the whole concept of an effective reaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that, depending on how you've designed your brain
Mm-hmm.
through the things you've taken in, is how much value that will have and how deeply you will feel about that. But you will, and it's going to cause you to grow your brain more. Now, there's a procedure known as shearing, which means, like, with anybody's brain, if there's a certain part of it and certain things that they don't use, that they, maybe something they learned or saw years ago, the brain will automatically remove that to make more room for more brain cells to grow.
Yeah.
But it's when you see something that is really special to you, you'll have that effective reaction. You'll have, technically it's called freon. It's like where you start having those natural those chills and that going up and down your spine.
Mm-hmm.
And you've probably had that before.
Yeah, I have, and also I've heard Dr. Bob. I heard that they have found out that those types of experiences, especially extraterrestrial experiences, they actually raise your IQ. And like cold water, like taking cold water showers, it raises your IQ. And I heard that from a scientific research. And does that is that possible that it can raise your IQ a couple of numbers maybe?
Well, I don't know if it raises it by numbers, okay, but I know it will increase your ability. Like, well, let me give you an example. Most of my background was in music,
Mhm.
okay, and I was in when I was with the government and when I was with other large organizations, I was a music administrator. And I noticed something starting to happen because I was over large school districts like in Dallas, Texas, and big places like that. Okay.
Right.
So I saw thousands of teachers and thousands of kids. What I started noticing around 1997, the administration started removing music and some of the other arts out of the schools. So what that was doing when we were finding out, when we started looking at test scores and so forth, they were actually dumbing down the students because when you have music, okay, and you're familiar with music, let's just take music as that art form. There are the difference between good music and excellent music are the nuances, the very slight differences. Like if everybody comes to the downbeat together when the conductor is conducting, that's a better sound than if it just sounds like someone dropping marbles onto a timpani drum.
Right.
So,
I used to watch people and they're dancing. And if they're dancing good and if they're enjoying themselves, then I know they're in the same beat that I'm laying down, the same downbeat and everything. And music, when you're on stage, your adrenaline just flows when you're on
oh,
stage and you're playing. It's just music is a miracle drug, actually. I
well,
think so.
yeah. And when you, I mean, and then that's why they have different styles of music.
Hmm.
There's jazz and there's rock and there's music that doesn't even follow any type of rules.
Hmm.
It's called aleatoric music that doesn't follow anything. It's just there, and there's you would I mean, my brain couldn't take just average organized music. I had to keep thinking beyond it.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, you don't have to have a major scale or a minor scale or just intonation. Uh, you can do all kinds of stuff. There was one composition that I heard. I think the man's name was Karl Heinz Stockhausen, and it was a vocal composition. And the people were they were singing the same pitch. The whole choir was singing the same pitch through the whole piece. The only change they were making is they were changing the shape of their lips while they were singing the
Frequency
same pitch.
modulation. Yeah.
So they were just doing some very, very minor changes.
Can I ask you about extraterrestrials? Now, I've heard that John Lennon, Elvis Presley, and several other big time musicians and singers were visited by ET. John Lennon, especially, a story about him being visited in his New York apartment twice. And the second time they come, they wanted him to go with them. And he tells this story, and it's written in a book. His wife, Oko no Yono, wherever Oko, yeah, I
Okay,
used to, or no, yeah,
Yoko Ono.
Yoko Ono, yeah, used to know how to say that right. But no, she, I guess, penned a book about his biography, and had that story in there that he had two little grays come to his apartment. They've done it twice, and uh, and he didn't want to go with them. They give him a little gift, and I can't talk about that gift. I know what it was, and I won't mention it because there's another scientist that talks about it, with me on the show, and I don't want to upstage him on that. But I know what that little gift was. But he gave this gift to somebody that I know that's very popular. Used to be popular back in the 70s and 80s. and I don't want to mention his name either, but I know him real well. But but these are visits that I thought to myself, they like music. Extraterrestrials like music. Have you ever found that out?
Well, I've never I've never visited with any extraterrestrials that like
Okay.
music, but
Okay.
you're on here. In fact, this is something in one of the books I was working on. Okay, um, there are. I think this was in the middle. Well, his name was he was a philosopher by the name of Boethius.
Mm.
Okay, and what this was, I think this was. I don't have it with me, but I forget what the date was. But anyhow, he talked about different types of music,
Mhm.
and there was a music of the spheres, and there was a music of you know instrumental music and so forth. There was different kinds of music. Certain musics were designed for certain functions and for certain people. And the music, the sonic changes in the music and these kind of musics were so important and so slight that they were extremely well valued. You had Boethius, and before him, he had Confucius and other people. These weren't necessarily scientists. We're still talking about BC, okay, areas. And they knew that there was something special about music. But you could get totally absorbed by the music that's going on. That's one thing when I was studying at Penn State. It's unique to find out that the sounds that you make when we're talking right now,
Mhm.
like through your voice and through your nose, when the sound comes out your voice and your nose, that's best heard by other people's ears. In other words, the sounds humans make are best heard by other humans.
Mhm.
There are lots of other sounds and colors of things that are out there in the universe that humans can't detect at all.
Well, they're saying frequencies now. The scientists are saying that frequencies are the big thing. It's not necessarily energy, but frequencies can, like back in the pyramid times, they said frequencies actually raised up large rocks and boulders. They had it created some kind of a lift with a certain frequency. We don't know those frequencies. I imagine our scientists do know some of those frequencies now, and we're not being told, but uh, that the music and also frequencies can do a lot of things. That's what we're all made up of, is frequencies, right?
Well, our bodies vibrate,
Right.
and this gets a little deep, but on Earth, things like bodies and strings and branches, they don't vibrate uniformly on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is, let's say if you have a wooden stick and is just lying on the ground on Earth, and something gets it to vibrate, it doesn't vibrate as a whole string or a whole stick. It vibrates as a whole stick, but at the same time, it vibrates in halves. At the same time, it vibrates in thirds. At the same time, it vibrates in fourths. It's because of the atmosphere of Earth and other things, objects, materials vibrate differently.
Right.
I mean, the sound sounds differently on Earth than it does on Mars because Mars' atmosphere is different than ours. So, well, there's a lot of times where where we're going to not hear things that other people do. And yet, when I was at Penn State working with this interdisciplinary type of team, we found out that some sounds, when they were testing them, now I wasn't part of this testing, but I heard about we were informed about the results. But there were some people that you played a really, really soft sound. Some people could hear it. Some people couldn't hear it at all. And some people heard it as extremely loud. And it was all the same sound. So a lot of it has to do with the receiver who's receiving the vibrations.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people say they don't hear any sounds out of these UAPs when they see them up close. I saw one up really close. It was a huge triangle craft. It made a hissing sound. It come out of a big vent about 30 feet wide with slats in it. And it made a kind of a hissing sound when it went over me. It was only 30 feet above me. So I was able to hear it. That's the first one I heard. I've seen 6 of them, but that's the first one I actually heard some kind of a vibration or hissing sound. And I think that was their getting rid of the heat from whatever energy source they use. So they do make sounds, and but not all the time, and that's unusual.
Well, I mean, I've seen 6 as well during my lifetime.
Right.
I don't know, like this. I don't know what they are. Okay. Um, I don't recall that sound was ever a significant part. And again, using the definition of UAP to define, what these objects and events are. But there are even a human being can hear sounds differently, and a sound can affect a human being, 2 human beings differently. The same
I
sound.
found that out with a good friend of mine that we saw a UAP UFO up close, and he said he heard kind of a whistling sound, a vibration sound. I didn't hear that. I was too visual. I was watching the portals, So he heard the hissing sound, and I couldn't say, well, I didn't hear it, so that means there wasn't any sound. No, I can't say that. He heard it, but I didn't hear the hissing sound or whatever.
Well,
And
have you ever heard of a condition known as synesthesia?
I've heard the word, but I don't know what the meaning is. Yeah.
Okay, it's we're really getting into some stuff here, but the synesthesia is, and I had experimented with this for a while. Stories I could tell you, but this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with UAPs or UFOs. But synesthesia is that some people, just the way people are born, okay, when some people hear a certain frequency, they envision a sound. And it's pretty complex for some people. Now, I've had it myself, where when I was a young musician just starting out at Duquesne, and what we used to call ear training exercises, because you had to be one of the top in Pittsburgh. And there was something. Have you ever heard the term solfeggio or solfege?
No.
It's like how you train your ear to hear what the pitches are doing.
Okay. I've done that automatically throughout my time. I didn't read music, but I went through by sound or by hearing.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this, like, you're using syllables like do, re, mi, and re, ra, and there's all types of syllables.
Mhm.
But you can really start training your ear how to hear these things. And I started when I was a young kid. Because I didn't have a very good ear. It's like the old it was like I wasn't born with that, but you could train yourself to have a better ear.
Mhm.
But those, I was starting to got to the point where I was hearing too well, so that when I would hear a piano string being played, let's see, on an acoustic piano, I could hear it vibrating in several different parts at once rather than just the whole string vibrating, and I was just hearing the fundamental sound from the string.
Right. Yeah,
And
I trained my ear for that too. When I was on stage, we'd have two guitars, a bass, and a keyboard, and I would train my ear for making sure that they were all in tune. And one string out of tune, I can usually pick it up.
well,
Yeah,
this was one string that was in tune. It was vibrating in different parts. I could hear the one string making harmonies on its own.
oh, okay,
And then what happens sometimes is that I could hear colors, especially if the sounds got too loud. I'd start to I could hear, and then I'd start to see a color, like a green start glowing.
really,
And then it just got to be uh it got to be ridiculous about the things that would start happening once you started training your ear to do things. You didn't realize it could do that.
right. Colors do have frequencies, and that's why the blue color in
Well, yeah.
this DO weapon, the direct energy weapon, when it hits blue color, it doesn't work. It doesn't burn. That the blue frequency, the blue color frequency throws off the DO weapon. And I saw that experiment on that too. Seeing is perceiving. Now, this when you're talking to a live group, Dr. Bob, I know I've done this too. You're going to have half of the crowd rolling their eyes, and it kind of bothers you, and you kind of think, okay, I'm wasting my time here. But there's 50% of the people will listen to this thing about UAPs and UFOs. And I say to myself, and they come up to me and say I'm crazy, then that's kind of, that kind of bothers me. But if they say, if I see one, I'll believe it. And you said here, seeing versus perceiving, and we talked about that. And then it says your eyes are open for about 66% of the time in our lifetimes. And
Yes.
mentioned that too. So seeing is perceiving. So that's a good line to
Well,
always
well,
tell people.
well, seeing isn't perceiving. Seeing is different than perceiving.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. It says versus.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Because seeing, your eyes, basically for survival, they're kind of there just to keep a lookout so you don't get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
That's technically what just your eyes are there for. But you can use your eyes to pick up signals, and to use them deeper than just that,
Right.
because you're the human, the Homo sapien, let's say, they're still evolving, and we're still evolving. So then it will be evolving for a long time. So we don't know exactly what we're going to evolve into, but these things can start changing,
Mm-hmm.
because when you can just see something, it won't really affect you too much. But when you start seeing it and perceiving it, and you start trying analyzing it to tell what the differences are,
Yeah.
that's when you really get tied up with it.
Yeah.
And
In your notes, you say that the it leaves a mental impression, and that's we were
yes,
talking about that a while ago, a memory that's implanted. Something else interesting you say here in the notes is seeing believing, and then you said Albert Einstein once said reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Could he be alluding to the Matrix concept?
well, I don't actually. Guess he's probably alluding to everything.
Really? Hmm.
I mean, it's when you when you really think about it, and like I said, you have to have, for you to really perceive things that are worth taking in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've got to have a whole sequence of that you follow. If there's something out there, first of all, you've got to have eyes, and you have to have senses to see it. So if you've got to pick it up somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then once you realize it could be something special. The next phase in the next sequence is you start to focus on it. And now once you start focusing on it and you can do that, what you do is your brain starts, you start reasoning with it, you start analyzing it, you start acknowledging what's there.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's special, that's when you have that effective response. And then that information gets loaded down to your brain.
You said here, our brain, not our eyes, has the final word on the truth. And it's I keep hearing this song. They got the lyrics in it. It says, "Your lying eyes." Do our eyes lie to us sometimes, Dr. Bob?
I don't know that they lie, but they don't pick up everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, in order for you to get everything you need out of an object that you're looking at, you've got to have your other senses and your brain connected to it. And then there's some people that experts that are saying we don't have just, 5 senses and I see dead people. There's like at least they have it limited to like, or have it taken down to like 33 different senses that human beings can actually detect. And I used to work with an artist who lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And we were working with people that had this synesthesia where they see colors when they hear sounds. And she would do her paintings on a type of a grid of different colors. And then I would match those colors with the sounds that went along with them, so that when she did a show, all that was going on at the same time, so everybody felt comfortable with what they were viewing.
Yeah, you're saying here illusions disrupt the process. Uh, can some people be seeing something and not really seeing what's real? Or could they be standing with 4 other people and one person sees something and the other 3 don't, like we were talking about sound?
Yes.
Could that be the illusions disrupt the process?
Yes.
It's like me being drunk and walking out of a bar and looking up, seeing a UFO. Well, I'm not going to trust that.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. But there's so many things when you start looking at it, and I started doing some analyzing some things that there were, and I can't remember the exact number yet right now, but there were a lot of people that were seeing UFOs or UAPs. Okay, just they were seeing them regularly. At the same time, there were other people who were seeing like these colors. So they
Right.
were seeing something that other people weren't seeing. They weren't there. The colors weren't there to other people, but yet they were seeing these colors when they heard a certain sound. There are a lot of people out there, more than you might think, that are actually, they're envisioning, they're experiencing things that other people aren't.
Maybe is it cerebral that what they're experiencing?
Uh, I would say so. I mean, from one of the ones I'm talking about, it's what's ever in their brain is going to affect what they're experiencing.
Now, you've interviewed people, Dr. Bob, and I have too. And a lot of times when you're interviewing somebody, I always say that there's got to be a seed planted somewhere about your memory or what's going on. And most of the time, I would think that it's easier to understand somebody when they have seen a close-up UAP or UFO, and then they've had these dreams. But then if they've never seen one consciously, or if they've never had an experience or an event that's physical or whatever, and could it be in a kind of I guess illusion or a dream state that these things come about?
I mean, that could always, I mean, if dreams come about that way, I'm sure the UAPs could.
Yeah.
But there's still, as long as your brain is active and it's growing, who knows what it can do.
Yeah. Well, they say extraterrestrials can also control your consciousness, your memories and things.
but the even like the latest, uh, I was with the Galileo Project for a while, and
Mhm.
that that whole thing at Harvard just didn't work for me. But Avi Loeb was saying that now he's claiming that aliens could never get to Earth from another planet. Now he said it would be too dangerous of a trip and take too long to get here. So he's somewhat changing his opinion on what's happening.
Is he bypassing the I guess uh, this what is this bridge that comes here and also through portals that can get him here without that long travel?
Well, I mean, I don't know what he's using, but it's they can't, according to him, they cannot get here without damage, okay, to themselves. I mean, there's so much discrepancy. I really don't follow anything that he does anymore. And I think, like, I'd say within the next year and a half, probably Harvard's going to be reduced to the reputation of that of a community college,
Right. Yes.
because that type is going on.
No.
But nobody really knows the distances and so forth. Nobody really knows. It would take. Have you ever heard of the Van Neumann probes?
No,
They
I haven't.
sometimes they call them Van Neumann probes.
No, I haven't.
Uh, they're probes again. Well, some of the things that I think it was called the um, Copernicus program were putting together. But in a nutshell, what these probes are is that you put the probe out there, and what it's designed to do, it's designed to self replicate itself from the materials on a planet where it landed.
Hmm.
Okay. So, in other words, this probe has the ability to duplicate itself exactly how it looks then on from the materials that the planet it landed on. So that planet has got to have those materials.
Right. I just had a doctor. He's a scientist on. I had him on 3 or 4 months ago, and he actually has video from a Navy pilot with a swirling like cloud, like a white, like a little tornado in the sky, and all of a sudden a UAP just shot out of it, and he recorded it flying past him. And so I've seen these other portal like movies, and I've actually seen things drop down from a portal in my neighborhood back in 2010, 2011. I actually saw them drop down, and then they would just stop, blink a couple of times, take off. So they're coming here through portals, or
But are they Van Neumann probes? I mean, I was talking about like the Van Neumann probe.
mhm.
And see, the thing about the Van Neumann probe, according to the research that I've worked on, it will take like something like 1,000 years to build one. If we started today, it would take 1,000 years, and then it would take 3,000 years more to distribute those probes to planets and get them working.
Mm.
So there's so much time involved that, is it really worth it?
Yeah. How about dimensional travel? I wrote in my book, and I might say this book here, the Angel book, uh, and I mentioned you, Dr. Bob, and I mentioned you in a paragraph along with, I believe it was psychiatrist John Mack, and I mentioned another scientist in this. It says an spiritual experience that results in fear and electrically charged euphoria. Your ET experiences are made up of these feelings. Dr. Nolan, I mentioned him, is correct in his assessment. Dr. Bob Gross believes that ET UFO experiences broaden our consciousness and thinking. You just mentioned that a while ago, and I got you in my book, and I put Dr. Bob Wenzel Gross in it. That's twice.
Thank you.
So I credited you for that. And I told you earlier that I would do that, but I like that statement that you made, and that was I put that in the book. But yeah, it's I I have to disagree with that, Abby Loeb. I mean, I know that they can get here through portals and through time travel and through dimensional travel. They can actually go through dimensions. You got angels, you got ghosts, poltergeists. You have actually Bigfoot. They say comes here through time travel or time, through dimensions, and you got these extraterrestrials that can come through time traveling and dimensional travel. They can get from one dimension to another real quick. So there's a lot of different, I guess, my argument for Abby Loeb is that how about those things,
Well, I think it's going to be running into the same thing. I mean, unless those people that are saying that can actually prove that, I mean, they're coming up with some good theories, but is there extraordinary evidence to show that? And
Mhm.
that's what's one thing I'm finding. There's too many people like that who without doing their scientific experiments completely, they're kind of just fudging the results.
Yeah.
Now they're under certain conditions, maybe that would exist.
What about the government says, and this disclosure is kind of coming out dripping, drip, 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 and they only let us know so much. I hear that they have 9 crashed vehicles that they've been back engineering and checking out in their underground facilities, and they actually say that there was actually biological entities in these ships. That's what this David Gross, I guess he's the key guy on disclaiming. I mean, opening up a disclosure. Do you believe any of that, or what's going on there?
Um, no, I don't, because of the background that's been done on Grosh.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot that I've run into in my time, Dave, that these people are making this up because, like I said, since 97, the schools have been taking things out that are allowing people to discriminate the differences, the slight differences
Mhm.
that are between things. And as long as that's happening, there's always going to be this cloud over how people are going to be thinking. And they're basically doing that on purpose so that they can try to uh, get some things going.
Right. Get some things going for a false flag, I guess. I, I
Yeah,
this David Grush, he actually was a CIA guy or an intel guy.
I'm running into. I've been in connection with some of those people. There's nothing that I can find that I can believe about him. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
uh, there's 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 too much of that that's out there right now.
Dr. Gary Nolan, I mentioned him along with you in the same paragraph, and I put you guys all together there. And Dr. Nolan is very, I guess a lot of people really are, like what he's saying, and they think he's very correct. And he talks about ETs that are real and they're here with us. So
Well, he's changed his tune on things since I first met him.
really, you met him in person?
No, we were both a member of the Galileo
I see.
Project,
Okay, okay.
and he came in after I did, and I sent him an email, welcoming me into it. I've seen some things happening with Gary Nolan that there's just as a scientist, there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
He just one day decided he would agree with Avi Loeb that aliens had been visiting Earth without any proof. I mean, he just because he's at a university like Stanford, I'm guessing he's using his reputation to get him through. But there's a lot of the things that I, you know, was believing about him at first that I've lost faith in what he's saying. Other people have too.
He talks about the abduction process and people that's been abducted, and some of the things that he has said. I've read up on some of what he said, and I've been through those experiences, and what he was saying kind of hit true to what my thoughts were because I went through some of those experiences, and he talks about those. That's why I kind of took a belief in him. But I guess if you get into the scientific thing, it's each man for himself. They all got an opinion, right?
Well, they still should be following the scientific method.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I've seen some videos of Gary Nolan when where he was wearing a clown, he was dressed up like a clown and
Hmm.
he had his face painted. And ever since I saw that video, I'm thinking, oh, you're a scientist from Stanford,
Hmm.
he just there's things that they're saying. There's a movie that came out, I think last year. I think it was called The Movie They Don't Want Us to See. Have you seen that movie?
No, no, I haven't. Is that Dr. Greer?
No.
No, not him. Okay.
It's I can't think of the man's name right now, but it's a very interesting movie. I mean, the whole idea is to get you thinking. This is like for me, a mind exercise. I for the most part, I've been very disappointed when when I joined the Galileo Project, and I was doing work with them. I was uh, basically training an AI computer how to identify unidentified anomalous phenomena, and I
Right.
was doing that work, and then everything they were doing just started not being sound scientifically.
Hmm. Okay. You had an experience. I know mentioned that in your notes. You want to go over that real quick? The experience you had.
Which experience?
I guess the one that got you started in UAPs. The first one usually is the most dynamic experience, I guess. For me, it was.
Well, as far as getting started with, like, the first encounter that I had with would be technically UAP was when I was 9 years old and I got knocked over by ball lightning.
Oh, okay.
Now that's, back then that was a phenomenon, and it still is technically today.
Right.
And it was so close I could feel the heat and so forth. I could see it. As far as an honest to God UAP that I could call a UAP today, the one would have been the up close would have been, there was one that was the shape of a manta ray. I have no idea. It flew close to me. I had a witness with me. Uh, I had no idea what that was. And I have no idea. It could have been a type of a drone that was experimental. Uh, there was also
It could have been one of ours, you're saying, the
yeah,
drone?
it could have been an experimental drone because it didn't do anything outstanding that I would have taken it from another uh, planet or whatever.
Hmm.
Also, there was an orange orb that I saw. It wasn't a close encounter, but it was close enough. And
Okay.
that was when I was living in Indiana, and that was strange. Now, and I did have, like with me, if I have those effective responses, because I've studied them so much and seen enough of them, I'm pretty sure that it's unique.
Hmm.
But there's nothing yet that I've seen that makes me see really think that it's from something totally different, solar system or another planet. There's nothing yet.
Hmm. Yeah, you're a pure scientist, I can tell, because you got to have the hard facts, and that's good. That's good. It keeps a lot of people grounded. You worked with NASA, Dr. Bob, and you worked with the Native Americans. I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but you want to just go over that briefly. You have it in your notes here, and
Well, yeah. Well, basically, what I did, this was 2005,
right.
no, 2006 to 2007 when I worked with NASA.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I was required, because I was a government agent at that time, working for the government.
Mm-hmm.
I was required to go to NASA to get debriefed on what was going on with the Ares program. And I saw some very unique things. There were some things that NASA was still concerned about at that time. Uh, and they were looking for people who thought differently to become astronauts
Right.
because they wanted them to be able to help the existing astronauts think differently about things because they knew they were going to run into things on other planets, especially Mars, that the average human was not going to be able to psychologically handle.
Right.
And even at that time, I was told about secret space shuttle missions that were flown.
Hmm.
And if I tell people about it, no one believe me now. They're starting to release the videos about those secret space shuttles that were flown.
Right. Yeah.
But there are things out there that we can't explain. And I really think we're going to have to adjust our thinking about physics a little bit before we can explain everything that's out there.
Mhm. I
Of course.
we're getting a lot. Can you explain this, Dr. Bob? We're getting a lot of sightings now.
Yeah.
And they actually have said, like down in Central America and also in Miami, they have actually seen ETs walking around. Now, the Miami story at that Bay Center mall, I, I don't know what to think about that, but the cops showing up, 100 cop cars over four teenagers, fighting with sticks, doesn't make sense. And then telling people to erase their phones and everything what they recorded. I've seen a couple of pictures of some tall, kind of really tall, like alien looking beings, and with some of their pictures, and also down in Central America. I think it was Guatemala or Paraguay or somewhere like that. They said that there's ETs that attacked their village, and some people have went down there and actually done some research, and they've been finding out that they believe them. They believe some of this stuff. Uh, we're having a lot of activity, like the giants, the Nephilim, and also the extraterrestrial they're talking about that's showing up, and also in the skies, we have aerial phenomena all the time. Every day, somebody's recording something. Can you talk about that, Bob? What's going on with all?
Well, first of all, the most of the ones that I've seen, there's nothing that I can say that it's a true image from as far as images go.
Right.
But something for you to think about is that when I think of myself growing up as a kid back in the 40s,
Right.
and when I would turn on, let's say, a space program on television,
Mhm.
I'd get something like Captain Midnight or something where these things were, Tobar, made out of a robot made out of painted boxes and, all those kind of things.
I enjoyed that as a kid.
So did I.
Yeah.
Now you got to imagine now that's the image I would have in my brain about, if that's all I ever saw, that's the only images I would have in my brain, that material about UAPs or UFOs or robots or whatever. Now, take a look at how far filmmaking is advanced with
Yeah.
Star Wars and all the special effects.
Mhm.
Now, that's going to be in people's brains now.
Yeah.
And it's going to replace, it's going to, the old robots are going to be sheared out because they don't need them anymore,
Yeah.
and the new things are going to be placed in the brain.
Right.
People, you would be expected to see, people would be expected to start seeing, or not really seeing because they're not seeing, but they're perceiving things that are more advanced.
Mhm.
So I
And
mean, it's just natural if they're out there that you're going, and if unless you've been, you're blind or you've been blindfolded, you're going to have those images in your brain.
so you think a lot of these things that's flying around with three lights and everything, they are more or less are engineered projects?
I would say they could be ours or another foreign country. I mean, there's 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 a chance of something like that could be alien, but in my opinion, they aren't going to be here yet. It's the more science improves, the further out they're going to be. It's going to take them from now on thousands of years, even if they're out there, probably to get here.
What about our secret space program they talk about? They said that Werner von Braun started it back in the 60s, and they can actually fly to the moon, they can fly to Mars, and we actually have bases up there. What do you think about all that talk that's coming out
Well,
from that?
I mean, there were people flying, like when I was working with NASA, I knew they could tell me the information they were telling me about what was on Mars. Somebody had to get there,
Yes. Hmm.
and it couldn't have been just a picture of it. So you can never know, because you'd be surprised to see how many space shuttles than that. And I would tell people about how I saw the talk to astronauts, and how I saw the badges from space shuttle flights
Right.
that were secret and no one knew they took off. Half the people don't believe you,
Hmm.
and that's yet you're right there talking with them, seeing them. So that these things are out there. It's the people aren't their minds aren't open enough to believe that. You've got to realize that uh, still, with everything that's going on, the chances of us being visited are going to be rare for a while yet.
Yeah. I guess I counter that because I've already seen these craft, throughout my life, and I've had visitation. But I what we don't know, we don't know, I guess, really what the government has and what they're doing. I know they're doing things that we don't even know about. We probably won't find out what they've been doing for another 20 years. They're always
Well,
way ahead.
well, when I was working with the government in Ohio, this would have been like 1992 or so forth. I was on a team called the Transdisciplinary Technology Team,
Hmm.
and we had clearance. There were about half a dozen of us, and it was our jobs once a month. We at that time the Apple computers headquarters was in uh, Cincinnati, I think it was, and I was required to go there once a month, and they'd bring all these specialists in, and I would get debriefed on all the new inventions in technology that were going on, and they were at least 18 years ahead of what we were at that day when I was there.
Right. You
So
mentioned
that,
the International Space Station, Dr. Bob, and I guess some of the things that they've seen, they've recorded, they actually go on their military channel whenever they start talking to them because they want to keep it top secret. They're seeing a lot of stuff, right? I
well,
mean,
there's a lot of stuff going on. I was surprised myself. Uh, there was recently uh, information that I received about there's so much junk out there in space right now
mhm,
that you'd be surprised how many times, let's say in a week, that the astronauts had to leave the International Space Station and go outside and hide in outside and hide basically
right,
in case some of that junk hit the space station and destroyed it,
right.
because it's that bad out there right now.
And actually, they're saying that they don't think any spacecraft can get past the asteroid belt because of the radiation.
There's yeah, there's I mean, Dave, if you look at some of the early experiments, that's the one thing. Like when I was studying the Kecksburg case,
Hmm.
uh, the Kecksburg case, there were experiments where they were planning to go from, let's say, Earth to the moon,
Hmm.
and they were going to blow up and do away with the Van Allen radiation belts. Now, those Van Allen radiation belts help protect the Earth.
Yeah. Right.
They they were seriously thinking. I mean, these scientists were thinking about trying to do away with those.
Wow. What for?
Because the astronauts could live through the
I,
going through the radiation and the
okay.
so forth. I
Okay.
mean, you would not be so that's like with with one of the books that I'm putting together.
Mhm.
It's the one about going to the oh, I can't think of the name, but anyhow, there are the space shuttles and so forth. They are part of what people used to call UFOs or UAPs. These are actually part of a continuum.
Okay.
They were testing out designs of like satellites.
Yeah.
And that's basically, they were testing out these new designs, and that's what people were seeing. And yet they knew this, the government or whoever, and they said, that they weren't space satellites.
Mhm. Okay, we're moving down to the last few minutes of the interview, Dr. Bob. I want to get your impression about Project Bluebeam and all the activity that's going on now, because the human race right now is in chaos. We are in chaos. The whole world is in chaos. And I think the ETs that are here, they say there's a lot of them that live here underground and under the water, and they are getting nervous that we're coming close to destroying the planet. They don't want the planet destroyed. They don't mind if we destroy ourselves, but if we destroy this beautiful planet, then they can't repopulate it with another race. So they're a little concerned about our nuclear weapons, I think. What's your feeling about extraterrestrials and the Blue Beam Project and what's going on with maybe the false flag indication, Dr. Bob?
Okay, I really don't even know what the Bluebeam Project is about.
It produces holograms in the sky and
Oh,
actually can make it look like UFOs or UAPs.
no.
Yeah, they can
Oh,
actually.
okay,
Yeah,
Dave, I'm going to tell you something else then. How long has this been?
it's been going on for about 10, 20 years,
Okay,
probably longer.
I'm going to tell you something new.
Okay.
Oh, geez, Dave, why'd you tell me this?
Oh, you're going to let out a secret and you're afraid to?
Uh, I'm going to try to think now how I can tell you this without letting out a secret.
Okay. Bingo.
Oh, Dave,
I know.
why'd you do this to me?
I,
I'm going to go back to the hospital.
it's not a trick.
All right.
It's just one that just popped up.
How can we do? Can you? Damn, why'd you tell me this? Okay, I knew something like this was going on.
Okay.
See, like those three books, those three books that I told you I was writing. Okay,
Okay.
I've been doing some research, and I really think that they're going to qualify for like Pulitzer Prize level books.
That's
Okay,
what you said,
because there's so the bold changes they're going to make, and there's all evidence that I have.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm trying to think of a way how to tell you this thing.
Well, if it's in your book, let's just
No, it's not. It's not. I mean,
it's not in your book.
it's not. It will be,
It will be.
and it's part of it, but it's not in the book yet.
Okay.
But let me give you a heads up, and let me try to talk about it in. Okay, I was with the Galileo Project. Okay,
Mhm.
it was my job to train computers, to train the artificial intelligent computers how to detect unidentified aerial phenomena. Most of my job, and again, I can't tell you
Yeah,
about it,
don't get yourself.
but most of my job was helping the poor little computer identify real objects in the sky that weren't UAPs. Okay. In other words, like, just imagine they could have been like balloons and strange planes and
Or
everything everybody else sees.
or Project Bluebeam.
Well, I'm not familiar with, but you sure this exists already, huh? Okay, well, here's my, you just told me this, you kind of filled in. If this is, I'll have to do some research on this, but if this is accurate, what you told me then this is going to fill in, uh, it's going to fill in a gap that I ran into with the Galileo Project, that caused me to stop working with the Galileo Project. Okay, here's basically what happened. And I'm kind of telling you so neither one of us get in trouble. Okay.
Okay.
When I was first brought on board the Galileo Project, And there were 3 members of the the team working with me. And I was supposed to go through training. And I was, I was supposed to learn how to train an artificial intelligence computer, how to, detect regular things so that they wouldn't mistake them for UAPs. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I had to fill out this whole form to do this. And I have a copy of the form I filled out. Luckily, I still have that. And I had an option of choosing, could I look at, that I want to view like artificial intelligence 3D types of videos.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I said, no, for now, I want to start just looking at the 2D. I think I can program these computers better by just looking at 2D models for now.
Okay.
Well, they accidentally let me see the other training program they had for other people. Okay. And I have it in writing that I didn't want to do that yet.
Yeah.
I was going to do that.
Like all top secret things, it was compartmentalized, right?
Yes, but they weren't at Harvard, at the Galileo Project. They were very sloppy on this. Okay. And I have the evidence. I have all kinds of evidence. I'm making this generic as possible to protect both of us. Mm-hmm. I never had to sign any kind of non-disclosure agreement at any time. I asked them to let me sign one. They said no. Okay. So that isn't an issue. But what happened is the program that they showed me that I wasn't supposed to see involved images of 3D, let's call them, for lack of better words, spaceships. And this is ones that Harvard or whoever, I was being shown this by the Galileo Project at Harvard. Okay. Mm-hmm. In this program, this 3D program, this animated 3D program, were images of what you and I might call a spaceship, an alien spaceship. Mm-hmm. They were not real. They were alien spaceship, but they were really good, damn good alien spaceships. If you saw one in the sky, you'd say that's an alien spaceship. Okay.
Yeah.
Then what the program had on it is you had to go through, and if I'm recalling this correctly, you had to go through and you had to check off how real it was. In other words, these are all real, which is the most real.
Yeah.
And my first thoughts were, wait a minute. They could put this on a holograph projector somewhere. And I started doing research. I found out that was possible to do right now.
Yeah.
And I have some friends that are already Pulitzer Prize winners that can verify that, but they know how to work with holograms. So apparently that technology exists. So what you're just telling me, what this project, what's it called?
Project Bluebeam.
Bluebeam.
Yeah.
They're ready for it, but it's not aliens.
No, it's not. It's actually kind of a false flag thing.
It's not kind of a false flag, Dave, and I've seen it.
Okay. So it will.
No, I didn't. I refused to be trained on that, mm-hmm. But they gave it to me. They showed it to me.
Okay.
Now, which was a total mistake.
Okay. Let's close out by you telling.
I was going to leave on that note.
Yeah. That's, I wanted to I didn't want to get us neither one of us.
Like I said, I refuse to answer that. I refuse to participate in that
No.
because I sensed something was up.
Okay. And it's probably best that you didn't know what was going on. Ah,
So
that's great.
I didn't, I didn't get involved. I didn't complete it.
Uh, Dr. Bob, why don't you tell us about your books and where we can look you up? And we're gonna close the show out. And I that that wasn't a trick question. I just
No, I didn't even really know that existed. How long have you known that?
oh, it's a very popular out there. I mean, it's the UFO community and a lot of people they've talked about it. It's in documentaries. Yeah.
Well, again, maybe they were just going, I don't know what the Galileo Project was going to do with that information, but that video that I saw was selecting the most real alien spaceship.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, man, they could try to pull that on anybody.
So if they can fool you scientists, they can fool us. That's what
That's I think that's what it was. Now, again, I refused to, but I did see it.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, like the books that now again, I had just drafted these. I had just written them. And I'm
Yeah.
still working on them. But the one is titled "Things You Need to Know About Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, but We're Afraid to Ask."
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is titled "The Best Part of Being Human is the Ability to Experience Music and the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena."
Okay.
And the third one was "The Roswell Syndrome, East Meets West and Beyond."
Could you quickly tell what the Roswell syndrome is, real quick?
Those are what happened at Roswell back in 1947 was actually it was a syndrome. In other words, those were just signs of what they felt was out there. They never saw the object, a real UAP. Okay, the syndrome are signs. Now I found in the meantime what are 11 there's 11 signs that were involved in the Roswell event.
Mm-hmm.
That, in other words, you can tell by looking at the Roswell materials that these things are from Roswell. There's a sign that Roswell was going to happen.
Okay. All right. Is now how can we look you up on the internet? Do you have a site or whatever that we can look?
Not anymore. And I've been having my computer has been hacked into so many times I can't even turn it off.
Oh wow.
So there's I don't have that anymore. I hopefully eventually once I'm planning on getting another computer, but right now I'm having issues
Yeah. Well,
with the
when you do this
computer.
kind of work, you're going to get that. I know I get a little bit, not
Yeah,
totally.
I've had been it's just I just got it even earlier this week I got hacked into again. It's just
Wow.
nuts.
Yeah. Okay. They want to know what you know that they don't know. That's the thing. And same thing with all of us that have these experiences. I think they're interested in what we know. So I guess what we're going to do, I was showing you that object beside me. It's there to let me show you right there with my arrow. I don't know if you see my hand or my arrow, uh, but this little
No, I can't.
yeah, this little blob
I
thing.
can see my arrow, but I don't see your arrow
Yeah,
anywhere.
this is to my right shoulder. It's near this blue flash area, and it looks like a blob of something, and it looks like a face. I've never seen that before. It just popped up tonight on my background. That this background is my green screen background, and that disappeared tonight. And I thought, what's going on here? Somebody drawing on my background stuff? How could they get to it? But I'm going to sign off by that. And actually, I wanted to also make a mention. I talked about this on the show. I was a guest on the other night, and I talked about Art Bell, and which was a great guy.
Yeah.
I really love that guy. And he left Nevada when his first wife died. He went to Manila, and that's where I was at. For
Oh yeah.
I was there for 5 or 6 weeks in Manila, Philippines, and that's where he went. He ran his radio station out of there. He met another Filipino gal. He married her, and they come back to Nevada. So that little story about me being in Manila, and then Art Bell, one of the people that I really like, he was in Manila for a while. So yeah, that's just that's a synchronicity there. We've been talking to Dr. Bob Wenzel Gross, and some very interesting things tonight, and I'm really glad that he come back on. And I wish him all the best in his health and what's going on
Well,
there.
thank you.
That, I hope you don't have another near death experience, you know. So
No, crazy.
yeah. So you've been listening to The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons and Dr. Bob Gross Wenzel. So let's just say good night, and it's nice being back with everybody, and being back home and getting back into the routine. And Dr. Bob, you take care, buddy.
Thank you, Dave. Good seeing you again.
Good seeing you, and I guess we'll see each other maybe someday soon.
I hope so.
Yeah, you just come up with some new stuff, and some new stuff that you can't talk about, and keep us busy thinking about it.
Oh, I'm sure that's happening.
Okay, all righty. Well, I want to tell everybody good night to the Dave Emmons and Dr. Bob, and we want to tell you good night and thanks for listening in on us. And we really appreciate you coming in and listening to us. And good night from the show. Bye bye.